Dawson's Rambles. Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here with a Dino Fury discussion video on some interesting information surrounding the Dino Fury Season 2 finale in regards to it ending on a cliffhanger, which would have ended the season and possibly the series on a cliffhanger. I stumbled upon this information on checking the thread for Ranger Board about the finale episode's description that I talked about yesterday, as we got a more detailed description of the finale, which we've known about for a while, which broke down basically, honestly, the synopsis. It's funny that this synopsis basically just spoils the whole episode. It reminds me how sometimes anime episode titles feel like, isn't that just the episode description? But anyway, that was a side tangent. The point is, it reveals that in the finale of Dino Fury Season 2, at the end, Zato sacrifices himself, but then is brought back by the Morphin Masters because they need to stop Lord Zed, who has escaped in space. I mean, presumably he's going to threaten Earth and everywhere else, and presumably Zato is also recruiting the other Rangers. Meaning, we would have ended the season, we are ending the season on a cliffhanger of Zato being brought back and the other Rangers being called to action. Like, I keep saying we would have ended it, but we are ending on a cliffhanger. But by that I mean, before we got a Season 3, if we didn't get Cosmic Fury for Season 3, this would have been it. Dino Fury would have ended on a cliffhanger, and presumably, if the reboot would have happened after this, whether it was directly after or if there was a gap, we would have ended the main continuity on a cliffhanger. And this is really interesting to me for a couple different reasons. I mean, number one, as I just mentioned, it would have been kind of funny and interesting for the series to end on a cliffhanger, like they did with RPM. Back when we thought RPM was the last season, it ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. So that would have been funny. It's also interesting just because as we're still in this sort of traditional bubble, this is a very non-traditional thing. Like, I've seen seasons all the time end on a cliffhanger, hopeful of a future season, in regular TV. But in PR, that usually doesn't happen after the Saban era. I guess so, but the Zordon era is what I mean. But especially in this more rigid decade we've been in, I mean, none of the Neo Saban, Beast Morphers type seasons ended on a cliffhanger. Even most of the seasons before the second or super seasons didn't end on a cliffhanger. I think Megaforce is the only one that I can think of that really ended on a cliffhanger. Like, there was stuff that was, like, on the table and not resolved fully, but never in a way that I remember it being like, oh, this is a clear cliffhanger leading to another season. So I think that's just really interesting going into this era where things are a little bit different. And it's interesting that they say that they didn't know it was going to be picked up for a third season. I think that's kind of fascinating that they would have ended it on a cliffhanger there. But also, that's interesting to me that they didn't know that they were going to get picked up for a third season or not, that they had their fingers crossed for it. For a couple reasons. I mean, there's been all kinds of speculation about this supposed White Ranger. There was supposedly a White Ranger from that description. We don't even know if it's really going to happen or not. But even outside of that, with Cosmic Fury happening, there's speculation for what suits we could get, new suits, whatever. And regardless of what we get, and the speculation, that makes me curious, like, when they filmed the cliffhanger, did they have, like, an idea in their head? Like, again, us fans could be coming up with stuff that wasn't even on the table. But let's just, for the sake of a scenario, say that they were going to do Q Ranger, right? Which is what everyone seems to want. Did they, like, if let's just, again, in this fictional reality that I'm creating right now for the sake of a scenario, did they have that idea of, like, okay, we want to do Q Ranger, let's do a cliffhanger, and we're able to use the Shishi Red Orion suit. Like, we have it, and we're using it for this final episode, and they had, like, a pitch. Did they already pitch the season? That's, like, I'm curious about that. Or had they not had any discussions, and we're just hoping that their next discussion that they had with the higher-ups was going to lead to a third season being greenlit? Because, like, at this time, third season for the cast was unheard of. Not to mention, if I remember right, Dino Fury was only supposed to be one season originally. Maybe that's why things seem to be different. And they're like, hey, why not go for a third season? Like, that's fascinating to me, regardless of what happens of when they filmed the cliffhanger. Because somebody had asked, the way this came up was, did you film two endings? Which I feel like is something that's come up a lot recently because CW just, like, acts like more than half their stuff. And a bunch of the shows filmed, like, two endings. Like, this is the end ending, and we're going to get a next season ending. I'm just curious, regardless, like, when they decided, hey, let's end on a cliffhanger to tease a third season where Lord Zed comes back. Did they know what they wanted to do? Did they want to do Q Ranger? Did they want to do Kara Major? Did they want to do just more dinos in space? Did they want to do something original? I'm really curious about that. Like, did they have a pitch meeting before, during, or after when that was going on? And, that could inform the possibility of any type of suit showing up in the finale. Like, if this was just meant to be a cliffhanger, like, we'll figure it out after we get picked up, maybe it is just the Ryuso Moria suit, or maybe it's not anything. But what if they had, like, Zenkaiser show up? Did they know that they were going to do that? That's interesting to me. And that brings up a can of worms, too, of people being like, oh, they don't have the rights to whatever suits, blah, 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 blah. Like, they can get the rights. Like, obviously, we've been doing Sentai for years. I can't imagine if they went to Toei and were like, hey, we want to do some stuff with the Zenkaiser suits, and you're going to get some money from it. They'd be like, no, we're just going to cut you off here for no reason. Sentai is doing totally well. No, I'm not going to pretend I know everything behind the scenes, because I don't, and I hate when fans pretend they do. But I feel like the idea of them getting the rights to suits past Ryu Soldier is not a crazy claim. Like, that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility, but I think it would be interesting to know what they had on hand if they were going to do Q-Ranger or Zenkaiser or nothing. What did they have ready? Like, just, it's interesting to me. It's very interesting to me. I think that's interesting information just in regards to the speculation of what we would be doing next. I'm interested to know when they did the cliffhanger, what did they know about what they were going to do next? Did they have it planned? Did they have an idea? Did they have a hope? Or were they just going to, see like, hey, we'll get renewed for a third season and figure it out from there? Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because I thought it was really interesting. I want to know what you guys think. What do you guys think of the fact that we would have ended on a cliffhanger? Would you have been upset if we ended the entire PR series on the cliffhanger and we didn't get Cosmic Fury and we just went to the reboot? I would say I'd probably be pretty disappointed if we ended on a cliffhanger. I will say that just here at the end, I hope that if Cosmic Fury is our last season in the continuity, or a future season is, like it could take anywhere from 1 to 5 years, whenever the main continuity ends, assuming it ends before the reboot. Again, we still don't know for sure, but just assuming the main continuity will end before the reboot, I do hope we end on something of a more note of closure. Like, I don't mind the idea of an ending, but then there's some sort of call to adventure of like just the notion of, hey, there's going to be more adventures happening off screen that you can imagine. I don't mind that type of ending. And maybe this is what that would have been. I don't mind that at all. I just hope it's not kind of like something that it leaves you hanging. Like, I don't mind endings that get you talking, but I think it would be nice to have a little bit more closure. Again, I don't mind something with the spirit of showing us that there's always going to be more adventures. Kind of like, it wasn't a perfect finale, but the Ben 10 finale of Omniverse, of that original continuity, kind of ended on this, not a cliffhanger, but this notion of we're going to explore this new universe, and we never got to see it, but for me it was like closure enough, and it let me imagine their further adventures. But I do hope whatever we do end on is a little bit more closure than a cliffhanger. Like, I loved RPM, and I think that would have been a high note to end the series on, but it was kind of a bummer to end the whole series, at the time hypothetically, on both a cliffhanger and something that wasn't really acknowledging the large history. I'm not talking about crossover crap. I'm just saying, I hope it ends on something that feels like, yeah, it's a nice note for this continuity to end on for now. But anyways, guys, as always, let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.